In the heart of the 15th century, while Europe was just beginning to stretch its maritime wings, a colossal fleet of Chinese ships, led by the legendary Admiral Chêng Ho, was already navigating the vast Indian Ocean, reaching as far as the eastern coast of Africa. This might sound like a tale from a fantasy novel, but it's a true story that has been largely forgotten. Imagine a fleet of over 300 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the Europeans had ever seen, commanded by a eunuch who had risen from the lowest ranks of society to become one of the most powerful men in the world. This is the story of Chêng Ho and the Chinese maritime expeditions that could have changed the world, but didn't. Let's start with the man himself, Chêng Ho. He was born in the province of Yunnan in southern China to a Muslim family. His real name was Ma He, but he would later be known as Chêng Ho, the Admiral of the Triple Treasure. The name Triple Treasure refers to the three precious elements of Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. However, there are also theories that it might have come from the valuable gifts he exchanged during his voyages. Chêng Ho's early life was marked by hardship. He was captured by the Ming army during a campaign against a rival dynasty and was castrated, a common practice for boys taken into imperial service. Despite this cruel fate, Chêng Ho showed remarkable resilience and intelligence. He was sent to serve in the household of the future Emperor Yongle, who recognized his potential and promoted him rapidly. Chêng Ho's close relationship with the emperor would later be crucial in his rise to power. The Chinese Navy of the 15th century was a marvel of engineering and technology. The ships known as treasure ships were massive, some as long as 400 feet and capable of carrying up to 1,000 people. They were equipped with advanced navigational tools and had multiple masts with large, efficient sails. The fleet also included smaller, more agile ships for exploration and combat. The Chinese had already developed the stern rudder, which made their ships more maneuverable, and they were skilled in using the stars for navigation. The Quran itself mentions the stars as a guide for seafarers, reflecting the importance of celestial navigation in both Chinese and Islamic cultures. In 1405, Emperor Yongle ordered Chêng Ho to lead the first of 7 major expeditions to explore and establish trade relations with distant lands. The fleet set sail from the port of Liujiagang near modern-day Shanghai and made its way through the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean, and beyond. The first expedition alone lasted 2 years and involved over 300 ships and 27,000 men. The fleet visited several Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia, before heading to India and the Arabian Peninsula. The Chinese brought with them a wealth of goods, including silk, porcelain, and precious metals, which they traded for spices, jewels, and exotic animals. They also established diplomatic relations with the rulers of the lands they visited, often leaving behind envoys to maintain these connections. Chêng Ho's fleet was not just a trading mission. It was a display of Chinese power and wealth. The sight of such a vast and well-organized fleet must have been awe-inspiring to the people of the regions they visited. One of the most significant achievements of Chêng Ho's expeditions was the discovery of the eastern coast of Africa. The fleet made several stops along the coast, including the present-day countries of Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania. They even reached as far south as Zanzibar, where they encountered the giant birds known as rocs or roos. These mythical birds, described by Marco Polo, were said to be so large that they could carry elephants in their talons. The Chinese brought back a giraffe from Africa, which was a sensation in China and further demonstrated the reach of their expeditions. Despite the success of these voyages, the Chinese eventually decided to withdraw from the sea. After the death of Emperor Yongle in 1424, his successor, Emperor Hongxi, canceled the 7th and final expedition planned by Chêng Ho. The reasons for this decision are complex and still debated by historians. Some believe it was due to the high cost of the expeditions, which strained the imperial treasury. Others argue that the new emperor was more interested in consolidating power within China rather than pursuing foreign adventures. The Great Withdrawal of 1433 marked the end of China's expansive maritime policy. The treasure ships were decommissioned, and the records of the voyages were destroyed. The Chinese Navy, which had once been the most powerful in the world, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. This decision had profound consequences for China and the world. While Europe continued to explore and colonize new lands, China turned inward, isolating itself from global developments. The contrast between the Chinese and European approaches to maritime exploration is striking. While the Chinese had the technology and resources to circumnavigate the globe, they chose not to. The European explorers, on the other hand, were driven by a combination of curiosity, greed, and the desire for new trade routes. Prince Henry the Navigator, a Portuguese nobleman, is often credited with initiating the age of exploration in Europe. He established a school of navigation and sent expeditions down the African coast, eventually leading to the discovery of a sea route to India by Vasco da Gama in 1498. The Portuguese, like the Chinese, faced their own challenges in the Indian Ocean. The Mozambique Channel, a narrow passage between the African coast and the island of Madagascar, was known for its treacherous currents and legendary dangers. The Portuguese, led by Vasco da Gama, managed to navigate this perilous channel and establish a foothold in the region. This achievement was a turning point in European history, opening up new trade routes and leading to the colonization of vast territories. The technology of Arab shipbuilding in the Indian Ocean also played a crucial role in the European explorations. The lateen sail, which the Arabs had developed, allowed ships to sail into the wind, a significant advantage for long-distance voyages. The Arabs also pioneered the use of the stern rudder, which made ships more maneuverable. However, the Arab ships were often built using a technique called stitching, where planks were sewn together with cords made from coconut husks. This method, while effective in calm waters, was not suitable for the rough seas encountered by the Portuguese. The Arabs, like the Chinese, had their own reasons for not venturing further into the unknown. The geography of the Arabian Peninsula, with its lack of navigable rivers and few good harbors, made long-distance sea travel challenging. The region also lacked the resources needed for shipbuilding, such as wood and iron. Additionally, the Arabs had already established a network of trade routes that connected the East and the West, and there was little incentive to explore new territories. The story of Chêng Ho and the Chinese maritime expeditions is a fascinating tale of what could have been. If the Chinese had continued their voyages, they might have discovered the New World before the Europeans, or even circumnavigated the globe. Instead, they chose to turn inward, focusing on internal development and stability. This decision had long-lasting effects, contributing to China's isolation and eventual decline in global influence. The legacy of Chêng Ho and his expeditions lives on in the historical records and the stories passed down through generations. His voyages represent a high point in Chinese maritime history and a missed opportunity for the world. Today, as China once again emerges as a global power, the story of Chêng Ho serves as a reminder of the nation's rich maritime heritage and the potential for future exploration and cooperation on the world stage.